You know that feeling when you walk into a room? Maybe it's a really high stakes board meeting or maybe it's just Sunday dinner with your in-laws and you can literally feel yourself shape-shifting.
Oh, completely.
It's like you're not just reading the room, you are involuntarily becoming exactly what the room needs you to be.
Yeah, that chameleon reflex. And then you wake up 10 minutes later and think, wait, why did I just agree to that? That isn't me at all.
Exactly. And I mean, this is the one that really gets me. You come home feeling great. You've had a huge win at work, but your partner has had an absolutely catastrophic day.
Right.
And within 30 seconds, your joy just evaporates. And you're managing their energy. It feels like life is sort of happening at you rather than you living it.
That is the perfect diagnostic to start with today. Because what you're describing, that feeling of being permeable, of leaking energy, it isn't just a personality quirk.
Like just being an empath or something.
Right, exactly. According to the research we're diving into today, specifically part 2 of this massive framework on life architecture, that is actually a structural flaw.
A structural flaw. I mean, that sounds pretty serious.
It is. It's a fundamental design error in how we position ourselves in the world.
And that right there is our mission for this deep dive. We are officially moving from the architecture of self, which we've covered in previous dives, into what the source calls the unseen force.
The unseen force.
Yeah. We're unpacking chapters 4, 5, and 6 today. And really, we are trying to answer one core question for you as you listen. Am I the variable that adapts to every room, or am I the one that brings a stable principle into every room?
It really just boils down to that. Am I the variable? Or am I the one?
Okay, let's get into the actual mechanics of this.
Yeah.
Position of one. It sounds mathematical, almost like software code. What are we actually talking about here?
So think of any dynamic system. It could be this conversation between us right now. It could be a chaotic team meeting, or honestly, even just the dialogue spinning inside your own head.
Right.
The source argues that in every single one of these systems, there's a center of gravity, a reference point that absolutely everything else orbits around. And that reference point is the one.
Okay, so something always has to be the anchor, like the sun in the solar system.
Correct. And the source outlines 2 fundamental ways we can figure this in our lives. The first, and this is the default setting for most of us, is called responsive one variable, or R1V.
R1V, let's break that down a bit.
In this configuration, your sense of self is the variable. It is fundamentally reactive. The source uses this really good analogy of a weather vane.
Which just spins wherever the wind pushes it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If you are operating in R1V, your identity is defined by adapting to the external environment.
Give me an example of that.
Well, if the room is angry, you instinctively become the peacemaker. If the room is chaotic, you become the rigid organizer.
You're constantly asking, usually unconsciously, I guess, who do I need to be right now to be safe?
Yes, to be safe, to be liked, to avoid conflict.
Okay, hold on though. I think a lot of us do this thinking it's a virtue. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm just sympathetic, or I'm flexible, I'm a good team player. Isn't adaptability supposed to be a good thing?
That is exactly the trap. There is a massive difference between strategic adaptability and structural instability.
Oh, okay, wow. Say more about that.
Empathy is feeling what someone else feels. R1V is becoming what someone else feels to stabilize the situation because you cannot stabilize yourself.
Oof. Okay, that hits hard.
The source calls this trap continuity. We start to tell ourselves stories to justify the shape-shifting. We say things like, I'm the reliable one, or I just don't do confrontation.
Those feel like descriptions of our personality, though. Like, I'm just a chill person.
But in this framework, they aren't descriptions. They are structural cages. If you define yourself as the reliable one, you'll say yes to work you hate, just to maintain the continuity of that identity.
You're prioritizing the pattern over the reality of the situation.
Exactly. You behave in ways to preserve the existing identity, even when it's actively causing you pain.
So if R1V is the weather vane, what is the alternative? Because the opposite of a weather vane sounds like, I don't know, a stone wall. Like, are we just supposed to be stubborn jerks who ignore everyone else?
That's the fear, isn't it? If I stop adapting, I'll become a sociopath. But the alternative isn't being unresponsive. It's called autonomous variable 1, or AV1.
AV1.
Yeah. If the first one is a weather vane, this one is a gravity source.
A gravity source. That implies weight, stability.
It implies a stable center. In AD1, the self is internally anchored. External variables like your boss yelling or the stock market crashing, they still shift and move. You see them.
Right, you're not blind to them.
Exactly. But they don't overwrite your operating system. You aren't defining yourself by adapting to the room. You are defining how you meet the room.
That's a subtle shift, but it feels incredibly heavy.
It's massive.
Yeah.
It's the difference between saying you made me angry versus I am experiencing anger in response to your behavior.
But why is this so hard? I mean, if I decide right now, okay, I want to be a gravity source, why do I still feel that intense pull to please people 5 minutes later? Why is it so hard to just stop spinning?
Because of the security guard.
The security guard.
Yeah, the source introduces this fascinating concept called the identity handler. Think of it as the bouncer at the club of your personality.
Okay.
Its entire job, literally its only job, is to shut the door on any behavior that contradicts your established R1V identity.
So if I've spent 20 years being the nice guy,
And suddenly you try to set a hard boundary, the handler steps right in. It creates anxiety, guilt, sweaty palms. It whispers, hey, we don't do this. That's not us. If we do this, we're going to be rejected.
so the anxiety isn't necessarily a sign that I'm doing something wrong. It's just the handler doing its job.
Exactly. It's a mechanism for continuity.
Yeah.
Most people interpret that anxiety as their intuition telling them to stop. It's not intuition. It's a security protocol protecting an outdated version of you.
Wow. So what do? Do we fire the bouncer?
No, you can't fire him. He lives in your brain. You have to give him a new job description.
A promotion.
Basically, instead of protect the old static self, the instruction becomes protect the becoming self. Protect my capacity to choose.
I love that distinction, but let's get really practical for the listener. The source mentions a specific tool for this, right? Because I can't just willpower my way past the bouncer. I need a tactic.
Right. The tool is called the person-persona principle triad. It's designed to break the trap of I am label.
Like, I am anxious or I am a failure.
Exactly. When you say I am anxious, you are claiming anxiety as your total identity. The triad splits this up. First, you have the person, that is the witnessing self.
The part of you that notices, oh, my heart is racing.
The observer, yeah. Then you have the persona. This is the real game changer. The source calls this a nounship.
A nounship.
It's a role you are playing. It's a temporary costume, not your actual skin. So instead of I am anxious, it's I am currently experiencing anxiety mode, or I am in manager mode.
That creates so much distance immediately. It's a state, not a trait.
Precisely. But the thing that holds it all together is the principle. This is the third leg of the stool. The principle is your stabilizing axis. It's your core values, your commitments.
So the principle keeps the person and the persona from just completely collapsing into each other.
Exactly.
Let's walk through this in slow motion because I really want to get this right. Let's say I receive an absolutely blistering, angry email from a client. My default weather vane reaction is to panic, get super defensive, and basically ruin my entire morning. How does the triad change that specific moment?
Okay, great real-world scenario.
Yeah.
Step one, the email hits. Your stomach drops. The person, the witness, needs to catch that. You say internally, I notice my stomach is tight. I notice a panic response. You don't judge it, you just see it.
I'm watching the reaction. I am distinct from the feeling.
Step two, name the persona. You recognize the costume you're about to put on. You say, I am slipping into people pleaser mode. Or, I am about to enter defensive mode. You just acknowledge the role.
And then the third step.
Step three, you anchor to the principle. Let's say your principle for this specific client relationship is professional excellence. Or maybe it's solution-oriented.
Okay.
The principal steps in and says, we can feel the fear, which is the person, and we can see the defensive costume hanging right there, the persona. But we are choosing to put on the problem solver costume instead, because that serves our principle.
So you're not denying the feeling at all. You're just not letting the feeling drive the bus.
That is AV1 in action. You are hosting multiple modes without losing yourself. You are the architect of the response, not the victim of the stimulus.
That makes so much sense internally. But things get a lot messier when you bring other people into the mix. And Chapter 5 talks about the relational position of one. Because frankly, it's pretty easy to be a Zen monk when you're alone in your office.
Right.
It is infinitely harder when you're married or have a stubborn business partner.
It is. Relationships are the ultimate stress test for this entire framework. And the source argues that most relationships fall into one of two pretty dysfunctional configurations.
Configuration 1 is where one person is the gravity and the other is just the satellite, right?
Right. One person is R1V, so they are reactive,
Yeah.
and the other person implicitly holds the position of 1. If person A is grumpy, the whole house is dark. Person B spends their entire evening adjusting, tiptoeing around, trying to fix the energy.
That sounds exhausting and highly familiar.
It is, but configuration 2 is arguably even worse, the reactive loop. This is where both people are in R1V.
Two weather vanes in a hurricane.
Exactly. I react to your anxiety with defensiveness. You react to my defensiveness with anger. I react to your anger by withdrawing.
Anxiety, just feeding anxiety?
We are bouncing off each other's reactions with absolutely no stable center anywhere. It's an escalation ladder to nowhere.
So what is the actual solution here? Because if I decide to stop reacting to you and I just become this immovable gravity source, doesn't that just turn me into the dominant one?
Right.
Doesn't that just push us back to configuration 1 where I win and you lose and you have to adjust to me?
That is such a crucial question. Because if I hold the position of 1, I dominate. If you hold it, I submit. So the source introduces a brilliant solution called the third.
The third.
Imagine a triangle. You and your partner are the bottom 2 corners. The top corner is the third. It's a shared reference point, a shared purpose, a value, a joint project that both of you serve.
Can you visualize that? The source mentions a napkin sketch, I think.
Yeah, the napkin sketch. Imagine 2 figures facing each other, but they're both looking up at a point above them. That point holds the position of 1. So neither person has to dominate the other, and neither has to submit. We both submit to the third.
Give me a concrete example of this. Say a couple is fighting about money, which happens constantly.
Right.
How does the third fix a fight about finances?
If there's no third, the fight is just you spend too much versus you're too controlling. It's ego versus ego.
Right.
But if they have established a third, let's say they agreed their third is financial freedom by age 50, then the entire conversation shifts. It becomes, does this purchase serve the third?
Oh, wow. It depersonalizes the conflict completely.
Completely. It's not about who wins. It's what does the relationship need? The source applies this to creative collaboration too.
How so?
If we're working together and we disagree on a direction, we look at the work itself. What does the project want to be? We serve the work. The project is the gravity source.
There's a really interesting note here about neuroscience too. Co-regulation. How does that connect to holding this position?
Directly. This is actually the secret superpower of the AV1 state. When one person holds that autonomous stability, when they act as a gravity source, they function like a tuning fork in the room.
That tuning fork.
Yeah. If I stay regulated, grounded, and calm, eventually your nervous system will actually start to resonate with mine. That's co-regulation.
So by just holding my ground and staying calm, I'm literally helping your biology calm down.
Yes. But if I'm reactive, if I'm R1V, I just amplify your chaos. Co-regulation is essentially using your stability to invite the other person back to theirs. You cannot lift someone else up if you are standing on a wobble board.
I love that image. Okay, so we've handled the internal self, we've handled relationships, but chapter 6 takes this concept and zooms way, way out to total life architecture.
This is the big picture. The source argues that most people run their entire lives on that R1V architecture, not just in arguments with their spouse, but in their careers, their health, their creativity.
Everything is just structured around responding to external demands.
Exactly.
Let's run the diagnostic on this, because I think a lot of listeners might feel totally successful on paper, but internally still feel like that weather vane. What does an R1V career actually look like?
An R1V career is largely about waiting to be chosen. You're fitting your skills to whatever job posting is out there. You define your success entirely by the salary or the title someone else hands you.
You're just reacting to the market.
You're asking, what does the market want from me? You are the variable. The market is the one.
And the AV1 career.
AV1 starts with a clear target. And this references the 40P framework from part 1 of the text.
Oh, right. We should probably unpack that quickly for listeners who haven't memorized part 1. 40P stands for what again?
It stands for target, truth, totally, and title. Basically, what is your specific goal? That's the target. What are your non-negotiable values? That's truth. Are you fully committed? Totally. And what is the role you are claiming? The title.
Okay, so AV1 starts with actually knowing those things internally.
Exactly. You define success internally based on your own contribution or growth. You choose opportunities that fit your target and your truth.
You aren't asking who will pick me.
Right. You're asking, where can I best apply my principle? It changes the power dynamic entirely.
What about creativity? Because social media feels like it is literally designed in a lab to force us into R1V.
It absolutely is. The algorithm actively rewards R1V. R1V creativity is creating purely for validation. You post something, and then your entire self-worth hangs on the likes and the comments.
You are contorting your work to fit what you think the audience wants. The source has a great phrase about this, contorting to find the audience.
Yes. AV1 creativity is the exact opposite. You create to explore a truth. You produce because it is part of your internal architecture.
You just put it out there.
The source says you don't contort to find the audience. The audience responds to your signal. You become the lighthouse. The ships find you.
That requires a massive amount of trust, though. You have to believe your signal is actually worth something.
It does. It requires trusting your fuel.
Fuel. Okay, this brings us perfectly to that formula mentioned at the end of the text. We promised we'd unpack it, and we need to, because it looks like algebra at first glance.
It does.
Life architecture equals foundation times fuel times terrain. Help us out here.
This is the integrated life dashboard. It's the core idea that you cannot fix your life whack-a-mole style. You can't just fix your diet and then hate your job and then try to fix your marriage in isolation. It is one interconnected system.
So break down the variables for us. Foundation.
Foundation is what we just talked about, the 4DP. Specifically, your truth and your target. Who are you and where are you going? If you don't know that, you have zero foundation. You're building a house on sand.
And fuel.
Fuel refers to your personalisms. These are your innate drivers. Are you driven by autonomy, by connection, by complex problem solving?
So if you're in a job that pays incredibly well, but it suppresses your unique fuel.
The system collapses. You will eventually stall out completely.
And the last one, terrain.
Terrain is environmentistics. It's the context, your physical space, the people around you, the literal market conditions. It's the landscape you're traveling through.
So the argument here is that flow, or true success, only happens when you align these three.
Exactly. Think about it. If you have a strong foundation, meaning you know what you want and you have high fuel, you're highly motivated, but the terrain is completely toxic, like a terrible workplace or a shrinking industry, you will burn out. You are just pushing a boulder uphill.
But if you align them,
if your job, the terrain, matches your drivers, the fuel, and serves your goals, the foundation momentum becomes inevitable.
you stop pushing the boulder and just start guiding it downhill.
You aren't forcing life to work anymore. You have designed a life that works.
Okay, I can hear you listeners right now thinking, this sounds absolutely amazing, but also incredibly overwhelming. Do I have to quit my job, divorce my spouse, and move to a cabin in the woods to get to this AV1 state?
And that is exactly what the outro explicitly warns against. Please do not go home and burn your life down today.
Put the matches away.
The shift from R1V to AV1 is not some dramatic explosion. It happens through micro redesigns.
What is a micro redesign in practice?
It's one decision in one afternoon meeting. It's choosing not to apologize for taking up space in a conversation. It's deciding, just for tonight, that your third in your relationship is peace. So you just don't take the bait when your partner makes a snarky comment.
It's the fractal nature of things, isn't it? The source says the pattern at the smallest scale is the pattern at the largest scale.
Yes. If you change how you handle the first 5 minutes of your morning, moving from reactive scrolling in bed, which is R1V, to autonomous breathing or planning, AV1, you are practicing the exact same muscle you need to redesign your entire career.
You're training the position of one.
Exactly.
So we're not just fixing our own little lives here. We're learning a skill that scales to everyone around us.
We are. The source calls it systems mastery. When you learn to redesign your own life architecture, to move from reactive to autonomous, you aren't just helping yourself. You are learning how to stabilize every single system you touch.
Your family becomes more stable because you are stable.
Your team becomes more focused because you are focused.
You truly become the gravity source.
Exactly. And in a world that is increasingly chaotic, increasingly R1V driven, being a source of gravity is quite literally the most valuable thing you can be.
That is a beautiful place to land today. It's not just self-help. It's community service through self-regulation. Okay. We have covered a massive amount of ground in this deep dive. Position of one, the identity handler, the persona principle triad, the third, the life architecture formula. It is a lot to process.
It really is.
If you take just one thing away from all of this, what should it be?
The question. Who is holding the position of one here?
Ask it when you walk into work. Ask it when you're doom scrolling on your phone. Ask it when you're arguing about loading the dishwasher. Am I the variable or am I the architect?
And remember, the answer can change in a split second. You can retake the position of one whenever you choose.
And here is a final provocative thought to leave you with, something to mull over on your own. We talked about the third in relationships with other people, but what if you applied that to yourself?
Oh, I like where this is going.
What if there was a third between your current self and your future self? What purpose binds you to the person you are becoming? Maybe treating your future self as a partner in a collaboration fundamentally changes how you act today.
Now that is deep dive for another day.
Indeed it is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us, everyone. Go build something steady.
See you next time.